length, first thing to do is to take a measurement. All these stretchers are 23 inches long, so I'll mark a little for 23 inches. Use a square. I'm going to use a handsaw for this one. And you don't want to use a saw that has large teeth. You want to have almost like a finish saw so that you don't cut, you don't splinter the wood as you cut it.
Step 3. Mortise, braces, and feet.
Well, the first thing I have to do is lay out the center of our stretcher piece here and mark for where this is going to be set in. So the slight mortise here. Now this piece of wood is not 3.5 inches, it's 3 3/8. So we need to first find the center. 23 inches, it's 11.5. So I'll mark the center. You can mark it here because this is going to be cut out. That's your center. Now normally 3.5 inches, half of that is 1 3/4, but you need to go a 1/16 less. So normally it'd be 1 3/4, 1/16 less, right there. 1 3/4, 1/16 less, right there. Now that is 3 3/8 inches. I'm marking here just down a little bit so I can eyeball this with the blade. 2 of these are going to go together like this. This will be cut out like this too. It'll be cut out also. And when these are put together, at again 1 3/8 inch, this is almost 1.5 inches. But not quite. So we'll set the blade down to 3/8 of an inch. Now you can use a blade, just single blade, and make several passes through it, or you can use a dado blade, 3/4 inch wide dado blade, and make the cuts just with a couple of passes. Now see, I cut both sides first, and I'll just run the blades through several times to make it easy to remove with the chisel. Okay.
You've done that before, haven't you?
Yeah.
Don't tell a lie, you've done that before. Right.
There we go.
Step 4. Make leg tenons.
All right, actually what we can do, put it in there flush like that. You can mark where the tenon goes. Tenons, again, will be 3/8 of an inch deep, so we have about a 3/4 inch tenon on it. We'll cut it with a table saw across there, but we can, actually you can cut the notch in a table saw, and if you want to measure it across here for where it's going to be, we could use the band saw, or do like we did with the other cross member. Cut several pieces on it and chisel it out. Then we have the blade still set at 3/8 of an inch, just like we did before with the other pieces. So we'll notch these. Now this is a demonstration of how to use the bandsaw to cut the, rip the length of the tenon here. I have the fence set up at 3/8 of an inch. So I'll turn this on and cut a piece off of this. The bandsaw gives a nice even cut, so you don't have to do any chiseling.
Step 5. Screw feet together.
I'm going to start with do a dry fit, and then we'll prepare it to drill for some pilot holes for the screws, and glue these together. Now these are going to be shaped for feet and a little bit of a decoration up here for the top. So we want to make sure that we lay out four areas for drilling for the screws that aren't going to be where you're going to be cutting. For each end. Five inches for another screw from each end. You don't want to drill all the way through, so what I do is make sure the bit only goes about halfway through the second board, and I put a piece of tape on there so I know how far to go in. If you're using a drill press, you can set a stop on the drill press to do the same thing, but on this you need to make sure you don't drill too far. Now I want to make sure that these are lined up properly, that they're squared off. So I'm going to clamp it here to hold it in place. Do the same thing with this end. The idea for pilot holes is so that the screws won't split the wood. Now, because we're using flathead screws, I'm going to have a special taper bit to make a countersink for the screw heads. it is a good idea to mark them, especially if you're going to, one's the top and one's the bottom. Now, if this is for outdoor use, a waterproof glue is the way to go with it. If you're using better hardwood or a different kind of wood that's going into the house, you could be using a regular yellow glue. Using 1-inch screws. It worked. We'll make sure the screws are on the same side.
Step 6. Shape feet and braces.
Now to shape the legs and the top, you can use cardboard. I had a couple of pieces of thin wood here, little plywood, and because this is 23 inches, I cut these at 11.5 inches so that they go exactly halfway across. And then cut it out on the bandsaw, and then transfer it back here and just draw it and be able to cut the rest of it on the bandsaw. Now I've cut out for the bottom, the legs, for the top, and I've marked them so that I won't get confused. Flip it over.
Step 7. Make stretcher tenons.
Okay, we're going to cut the other end of the stretcher. Now we had 6.5 inches here, so we'll come back here 6.5 inches from this end. Now we cut this with the top going to be 6 feet. There's 5 inches less on each end of this, so this is shorter by 10 inches. So instead of 72 inches, 6 feet, it's 5'2". So we cut this off at 5'2". And 6.5 inches. There you go.
Step 8. Cut leg mortises.
Mark this. Now we've got an opening for this. Is 2 5/8, almost 2 3/4 actually, because I don't want to too tight on the top. So 1 2 3/4. And we'll just center it. And that's center where we'll drill our holes. I'll drill several holes with the 3/4 inch bit, and once I get the holes drilled, I'll use the chisel and break through the little ridges, smooth it out, and square it off. But with a flat bit like this, it less tear out. It'll make a clean hole. Then we'll take the chisel and round off the edges.
Step 9. Cut wedges.
Wedge for the stretcher. You can really use any hard wood, but I've got some poplar here. And as our plans show, there's about 5/8 of an inch at one end and 1 inch at the other and 4.5 inches long. So I've laid it out here, and I'll just cut that out on the bandsaw. Now we have it cut out. It just takes a little bit of hand sanding and take the rough edge off, and it's ready to go.
Step 10. Stretcher mortises.
We need to mark where the hole for the peg goes. You want to just center it, have it tight, mark right where the edge of the leg is. Now that's where the leg lines up at, but we want to go 1/8 of an inch inside so that it'll pull up tight. So 1/8 of an inch. We'll use a 3/4 inch bit to drill through it. So about 7/8 of an inch. That's where we'll drill.
Step 11. Sand and dry fit. Step 12. Put legs together.
I'm going to put the glue on the inside here. If I put it up on the tenon, it'll push away from where I want it. So I'll put it down in here along this edge. And put it down a little bit. Back in. There. You want to make sure the screws on the same side, because those will be on the inside of the table. You don't want to have those visible on the outside. Clamping this up, you want to put it right next to the tenons, not on them. And once we get it on in place, then we'll check it to make sure that it's square. Checking square, the corner, either the top or bottom of your thing. So we got 36.5 to that corner and 36.5. I want to make sure that it's same height. Okay, this one is just a little high. So I'll clamp this one a little tighter first. All right, that evened it out.
Step 13. Assemble top.
I've got this centered on the top, and we have the top laid out here, marking where the legs meet the back side of the legs here. Because we want to put the cleat on this side of the leg, so that when it tightens up against it, it'll be tightening up against the cleat also. So I'll mark this one here, and here. Move it to this one. Now these should be 5 inches in from each end. Just to check, make sure, 5 inches. Mark there. Mark there. And take the straight edge, which use one of the cleats. That's where that's placed. Put a little bead of glue underneath that and screw it on.
You can handle that?
Just turn it over.
Final step, assemble table.
Oops. I really don't want to tighten this yet because we've got to put the top on. So just
Right.
should have brought some beers out.